up on BG24 Sports. Hockey is moving on to the Final Five, but can they take down Michigan Tech?
Plus, the men's basketball team is seeing postseason play for the first time in 3 years for their first CIT game tomorrow night.
And football is getting ready for spring practice. We'll go over the upcoming season and what to expect. All this and more coming up right here on BG24 Sports.
It's un-Falcon believable coverage that you won't get anywhere else. This is BG24 Sports.
Welcome to BG24 Sports. I'm Katie Wernke.
And I'm Terry Lash.
Bowling Green took on Northern Michigan in the first round of the WCHA tournament this weekend. Now, the last time the Falcons faced the Wildcats, they were swept. But this time, it's a different story. NMU would get on the board first with a Zach Diamantoni goal just under 9 minutes into the second period. But the Falcons answered right back with Tyler Spezia and a hard shot into the corner of the net to tie. This one comes just over a minute after the Wildcats goal. Then later in the second, this time Brandon Hawkins gets a stick on it after Mark Cooper loses control. Falcons move ahead 2-1. Hawkins would score another in the third, along with Brent Tate, to push the Falcons through to St. Paul in the Final Five.
I mean, there was energy in the building, I thought, the whole night. But after we scored to tie it up real quick, like it wasn't like we were playing from behind for a long time. Again, I think we played off that energy and were able to take our game to the level that we were hoping to be at more this weekend.
It was one of those things where we kind of got in our head going into the third period, saying, you know what, we're going to win this one. We're coming into it. We want it more, and that's all it's going to be.
Now, Terry, this game on Friday was sort of heavily in favor of Michigan Tech. It went into overtime. The Falcons ended up pulling it out 2-3. But Saturday was all Bowling Green, 4-1, and the shots on goal were really astounding.
You're right, Katie. Northern Michigan just couldn't compare with the shots of the Falcons. At 94 shots on net for Bowling Green this weekend. Goaltender Michael Doan just couldn't handle all of the shots he was facing this weekend. It wasn't terrible defense from Northern Michigan, but it was just shot after shot after shot, and once you see that many attempts, you're going to get put back goals. That's what happens in hockey.
It definitely is, and Tommy Burke had 38 saves on Friday. He had 19 on Saturday, so we saw an outstanding effort from Tommy Burke, especially those 38 saves on Friday. But one thing is that really hurt NMU is when you talk about getting just shot after shot on them, the penalties come into play, and
sure.
Northern Michigan had a lot of penalties over Bowling Green. There were 3 ejections on Saturday, and so when you have multiple penalties in multiple penalty minutes, that's going to give you power play opportunities. In Bowling Green, they took an opportunity on one of those power play moments on Saturday with a Brent Tate goal.
Yeah, and it's a great victory this weekend for the Falcons, and that moves them on to the Final Five, which is actually only 4 teams. That's going to consist of Bowling Green, Michigan Tech, Fair State, and Minnesota State. It sets up a great rematch with Michigan Tech that they faced earlier this year.
It absolutely does. They had seen Michigan Tech earlier this season. They got a win and a loss. They had ended up splitting that series, but Minnesota State is also a team to watch out for. They have the potential to really make it into the finals in the WCHA tournament.
You're right. It was a big 3 in the WCHA this year, seemed like most of the year, and then finally the Falcons kind of fell off at the end of the season. So it was just Michigan Tech and Minnesota State. After the dominating performance this weekend, I think the Falcons are right back out there. I think they're playing as good at hockey now as they were when they were winning all those games, not losing. And you can't count on Fair State, though. Fair State has some of the best goaltending in the WCHA. They were fantastic, but they just have such a hard task to Minnesota State.
They definitely do, and we had seen, when we saw Northern Michigan earlier in the season, we were swept by them. I think that's when some of the fans were thinking that the Falcons, maybe they were falling off a little bit. And then they come back out and they take Michigan Tech in 2 games to move on, or Northern Michigan, rather, in 2 games to move on. And now they play Michigan Tech, which, like we had said, they had seen earlier in the season. But let's take a listen to what Coach Bergeron has to say about seeing the team again.
We're going to play a team that we've beaten before this year. And I hope we're going there with a swagger, and that's going to be the conversation. We're not just going there to be part of it. We're going there with a mindset, take care of what we need to take care of.
And Michigan Tech, they've been just absolutely solid this season. Let's look at some of these stats. 28 wins on the season. That is most in the entire NCAA. Michigan Tech 21-5-2 with their conference record. 3.68 goals per game in conference, only 1.7 against, Katie.
Absolutely, and those 3.68 goals per game, that can hurt Bowling Green when the question of who is going to be the goalie does come into play, and it's come into play the entire season. We did see Tommy Burke, who had a strong showing this last weekend, but 3.68 goals per game in conference play, that's a high number, and especially in the WCHA where you do have Northern Michigan, who's good, and you have Minnesota State, who's second in the country.
True. Yeah, the Falcons are going to have their toughest opponent this weekend because, you know, both teams, they have everything to play for. They want that WCHA title. They've been working for it all season long. It's going to be coming to a head this weekend. Falcons playing some of their best hockey. They're really going to have to bring it out defensively if they want to stop Michigan Tech for sure.
They absolutely are, and they are also going to have to bring it out offensively. If we take a look, Michigan Tech has one go-to goalie, something that Bowling Green has struggled with, like I had just said earlier. Jamie Phillips is Michigan Tech's goalie. He's played in 38 games. He's 27-7-2. He only allows 1.61 goals per game.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, and .938 save percentage. Definitely superior than what Bowling Green's been putting in the net this season. But we have faced them before. Last time they played, they lost 4-3, and then they won 3-2. They split that series on the road. They have the potential to take down Michigan Tech. It's going to be a steep challenge. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be a very hard contest, but it's one game. Just one. You can beat anyone in one game. We saw so many instances over the years in hockey where the underdog comes up from behind. I think the Falcons can do it.
I agree. I think they do have the potential to pull out a win, especially this past weekend. We saw a lot from the freshman core of this team. We saw Tyler Spezia, who scored the overtime game-winning goal on Friday, and he scored the goal on Saturday to tie it up with Northern Michigan. We saw Brandon Hawkins, who had 2 goals on Saturday. So we've seen a lot from the freshmen on this team, and if they continue to play this way, then they have a good chance at beating Michigan Tech.
Yeah, they need them. They need those freshmen to turn out. If they don't have solid games, I don't think they can advance.
I don't think so either, but we will find out that game. First game is Friday against Michigan Tech, and then the finals are Saturday. Now, after the break, men's basketball is headed to postseason play for the first time in 3 years. We'll go over what to expect when we come back.
And welcome back. And the Bowling Green's men's basketball team struggled in the MAC tournament, losing on Wednesday 73-67 to Eastern Michigan, and that ended their regular season, but now they'll be looking towards the postseason.
Absolutely, and Terry, I think before we even get to the postseason, we have to talk about what a turnaround it was from last season. Last year, the Falcons went 12-20 overall. They were 6-12 in conference play, 6th in the MAC East, no postseason play. And now they are 20-11. They finished 3rd in the MAC East, and they are seeing postseason play. So a huge turnaround from last season.
You can't give enough credit to new head coach Chris Jantz. Chris Jantz, who's going to be a finalist for the James Hall B Award, has been absolutely outstanding in taking players that were here with the program beforehand and just getting the best out of them. We've seen Rashawn Holmes take it to new heights, the emergence of Zach Denny, who we never saw last year, and then talk about all those junior college transfers that he brought in and led this team like Pep Joseph and Jovan Austin and Delvin Dickerson. It was a really exciting team to watch. Very disappointing result in the second round against Eastern Michigan, a team they clobbered earlier this year. But sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles, and now they still have some basketball to play.
They absolutely do. If we take a look at the upcoming game, they're in the collegeinsiders.com postseason tournament. Their first game is Tuesday against St. Francis in Pennsylvania. Now, Kent and Western Michigan are actually going to be in this tournament as well, so maybe we'll see some more MAC rematches. But let's take a look at this game. St. Francis, they finished 16-15. Bowling Green had that 20-11 record. The scoring offense and scoring defense, though, it's pretty even across the board for both of these teams.
St. Francis coming out of the Northeastern Conference, not traditionally one of the powerhouses even among the mid-major conferences. I think the MAC holds much more prestige on the college basketball landscape. I think we've seen some of the best teams, a very competitive MAC conference this year, and Bowling Green was #1 just a few weeks ago. Could have beat anyone in this conference, also could have lost to almost anyone in this conference. It was that tough. I don't know if St. Francis has faced that same level of competition. They do have the home court advantage. They definitely have that going for them. But you have to think this is a hungry Falcons team, a team that hasn't seen the postseason action. They're going to relish in this opportunity to play in the CIT tournament. And then you have the seniors of Anthony Henderson and Javon Clark and Rashawn Holmes, who don't want their careers to end already. They want to play as much basketball as they can.
They absolutely do. And St. Francis, this is their first winning season in 10 years. So when you say that Bowling Green is hungry, St. Francis is just as hungry. They want to win as well. It should be an interesting game. You said that they did have home court advantage. So we'll see where the Falcons end up in this tournament.
All right, we'll see what scores are going to come up big for the Falcons. You got to talk about Rashawn Holmes. 14.8 points per game, and the emergence of Javon Clark, especially at the end of the season. He came in averaging over 10 points per game. Almost all the way through the year, he was averaging in single digits. He did fantastic down the stretch, Katie.
He absolutely did, and we've seen Zach Denny really come into his own this year. He averages 9.4 points per game. He was out with an injury his freshman year last year. He only played in 3 games. So Zach Denny has really, he's come into his own as a Falcon under head coach Chris Jans. And like you said earlier, Chris Jans has really transformed this team into exactly what he wants. We have Pep Joseph, like you had said, and Jovan Austin and Delvin Dickerson. So it's going to be a very exciting upcoming years and the rest of this season for Bowling Green.
It's just crazy to think about the 2013-2014 season where a lot of these same players, and they just weren't putting out the same results. We saw Rashawn Holmes last year, 13.3 points per game. Zach Denny, 3.3. Barely saw any time on the court. And then the next year, they just completely expanded their games. They just put in that extra work, and it showed on the court with victories. It is just insane, the job he did in just a short time. I don't think we can give enough credit for the 1-year transition this team took from being last in the MAC East, 6th in the MAC East, all the way to 3rd. Very well could have been 1st.
Absolutely. Now that game is Tuesday night, but when we come back after the break in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about football. The upcoming football schedule came out, and spring practice is well on its way. Stay with us. Now, the football schedule was released last week. The Falcons have 5 home games and are going to face 4 non-conference teams coming from the SEC, Big Ten, and American Athletic Conference. Now, Terry, there are a few tough games. It's all in the beginning of the schedule. They have Tennessee, Maryland, Memphis, Purdue, and then it's all MAC from there.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough stretch for the Falcons to start this year. Got to schedule that Week 1 game against Tennessee. Added late to the schedule, BG replaced UAB, which no longer has a football program. Bowling Green traveling down to Knoxville. Is going to be an interesting contest.
It absolutely is. I think my pick for the game to really look out for this coming season is Memphis. Memphis won in a 3-way tie the American Athletic Conference Championship this past year. They were 10-3 overall, 7-1 in conference play. And it's not a team, it's not in Wisconsin or in Alabama, but the American Athletic Conference is a good conference for Bowling Green to start playing teams from because it's almost on the same caliber as the MAC.
Yeah, and I talked about a little bit earlier. I got to talk about Tennessee quarterback Joshua Dobbs, 7-6 overall record, 3-5 in the conference. An SEC team really going to test the Falcons right out of the blocks.
They absolutely are. Now, Terry, some of these non-conference teams, so Purdue, we just talked about Tennessee and Memphis. We're seeing 2 Big Ten teams this year. We saw 2 Big Ten teams last year. I think the Falcons are really trying to enhance their non-conference schedule to get some tougher teams in there and to maybe at some point bump themselves up into the rankings or into contention for being in the rankings.
To be the best, you have to beat the best, Katie. And we saw last year that beat Indiana. A Big Ten team came in here and the Falcons beat them. They are right at that level. I think that's what Coach Dino Babers wants from this team, to play out to the hard competition and see if that will raise their level of play.
I think he does as well. And one way he'll be able to see this is with players coming back this year.
Sure.
We have Ronnie Moore who's coming back, Roger Lewis. Roger Lewis, who averaged 78.1 receiving yards per game. And then, not to mention all of the quarterbacks, James Kanapke, Cody Callaway, Matt Johnson. It's really a lot of people are coming back for this Falcon team.
You're right, and that's the biggest one. Matty J coming back after only playing 1 game last year, but they do lose some key players, losing Brian Sutton, Gabe Martin, and Rylan Ward. The defense is really going to have to ramp it up next season.
They absolutely are. Now we do have, you said Travis Green. We have Travis Green coming back, Garrick Dieter. But how will they stack up in the MAC? The MAC, we had talked about how it's a tough basketball conference. It's not the easiest football conference as well, mainly the MAC West.
You're right. The MAC West absolutely dominant over the MAC East last year. We saw when Bowling Green went to the championship game, got destroyed by Northern Illinois. I think a lot of next year is going to be the same. I think Bowling Green will compete in the MAC East, but I think a team like Toledo is just leaps and bounds ahead of Bowling Green football-wise.
It absolutely does, and you mentioned Northern Michigan as well. But now, when we come back, it is hot or not. Terry and I have a few topics to tell you whether we think they're hot or not. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time for a little game called Hot or Not. Terry and I have a topic, and we give you our opinion on whether they are
hot
or not. This week, we have topics from March Madness all the way to baseball. But first, we are going to start it off with hockey. Hockey beat Northern Michigan this past weekend. They're on a 4-game win streak. Are they back?
Yes,
are they hot
Katie.
or not?
They are scorching hot right now. The Bowling Green hockey team finally showing the hockey form that they did the majority of this season. They got swept last time they played Northern Michigan. Really showed out this weekend. Finally getting an overtime win that was actually huge for their confidence. And I think now going for the rest of the year, Bowling Green is going to remain hot.
I got to agree with you, Terry. They are hot. After coming off of that regular season sort of downfall, they picked it back up against Alabama Huntsville, and now they are on the road to the Final Five. So they are definitely hot, back on the right track.
Melting the ice.
Absolutely. Now we're going to move it over to some baseball. Is Brett Fitzwater hot or not?
Not, Katie. Brett Fitzwater is not hot. 1-0 record, but he leads All-Stars in walks and is last in normal stars in strikeouts. And he just with a almost a 4.0 ERA. Not terrible, but just not to the hot caliber that I would describe.
I'm going to say that Brett Fitzwater is hot. Pitching for Bowling Green these past 2 games at the Russ Matt Invitational, he got a loss and a win, but he is second on the team for the lowest ERA with a 3.97. Now that may not seem too low, but in comparison to with some other pitchers, that's pretty low on the scale. So I'm going to say that Brett Fitzwater is hot. He's 2-2 on the season. I'd say he's pretty hot, Terry.
I'm going to give him a jacket because he's not.
Okay. Now we're going to move it over to March Madness, UK basketball. We know they're hot, but are they hot enough to make it all the way, undefeated, whole season?
Yes, Katie. I'll stop you right there and say that they are good enough, because not only are they just the deepest team I think we've ever seen in college basketball, 9 players deep that could be the best players on any other team in the country, but they have one of the best tournament coaches in John Calipari. I just don't see a way this Kentucky team is going to lose.
I agree with you, Terry. They are hot. They are on fire. They are going to make it all the way. Like you said, they have the depth, some of the greatest depth that we've seen in college basketball.
It's insane.
And they've had tough games to where they almost, it looked like they were going to lose, but they find a way to win. And that is all that matters in March Madness, is that you find a way to win. You just have to dance your way through the tournament, and I think UK can definitely do that.
Absolutely. We saw last year as an 8 seed, and they go all the way to the finals. Definitely can do as a 1 seed.
Absolutely. Now another March Madness team, Duke basketball. Duke lost in the ACC tournament. Are they still hot going into March?
Yes, they are still a hot team. They got the rightfully deserved #1 seed. It's going to make it a lot easier for them to get to the Sweet 16 try to move to the Final Four. I like them in their part of the bracket to reach the Final Four. I like them to reach the national championship game against Kentucky. Did lose against Notre Dame, but I think they just shrugged that one off and just stormed through the tournament with Coach K leading them.
You know what? I'm going to say that they are not hot because of that ACC loss. When they lose to Notre Dame in the tournament that many thought that they had a good potential to win. I know there's North Carolina's in that tournament, and like we saw Notre Dame. But many thought Duke had the perfect opportunity to win that tournament, and they did not. So I'm going to go with they're not hot. But for a little debate, I'm going to throw you a bone here, Terry. A little debate on your side here. A loss in a tournament is not necessarily a bad thing going into March Madness.
No, because you get that loss, you get it out of your system, and then you just see them, and they've been in this situation before. Not some of the freshmen like Jaleel Okafor, but Coach K. He's been here time and time again. He's going to lead his troops, and I would not want to play Duke come tourney time any year.
I wouldn't want to play Duke or UK.
True.
So, well, that is hot or not. Now, when we come back, we'll have our picks of the week for Falcon Sports. Keep it right here. Welcome back. We have 4 games this week to give you our picks of the week. Hockey, men's basketball, baseball, and softball. And what makes our picks better than putting some friendly competition into it? We have my picks, Terry's, and Studio Crew's picks for each game. And Terry's already getting down to the records here. I am right in the middle with a 4-4 record. Terry, he's in the lead with a 5-3 record, and Studio Crew is last with a 3-5 record. That's why they're not on air, right? maybe not though. Now, our first pick is hockey, and we're not just going to say is hockey going to beat Northern Michigan or Michigan Tech, but are they going to win it all? Are they going to be WCHA champs or not?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to put Michigan State up there, Michigan Tech up there, excuse me, Katie. I think Michigan Tech has more wins than any other team in all of college hockey this season. And I think that we've talked about the great goaltending earlier, a team that puts up a lot of points on the board as well. I think we might see an upset with Minnesota State this week, and I might go on record and say that I like Ferris State in that odds, and I just think Michigan Tech, the term just kind of suits well for them. I think they can take down BG, and I think they can go all the way in the Final 5, win the WCHA.
You know what? I'm going to go with Minnesota State. I think second team in the country, ranked second. They've been first and second. That's really the hot spots for this team, and I think that they have the potential to win this tournament. They're taking on Ferris State, and then I just think they're too strong to be taken down. But Studio Crew has picked Bowling Green. They're going to pull for the Falcons as they take on Michigan Tech this coming weekend. Now, men's basketball, they play tomorrow against St. Francis. I'm going with Bowling Green just because I think Bowling Green, they lost in the MAC tournament, but they want this bad. They want some wins, especially after last year. They really want to win this one.
You're right, and this is a team that hasn't had chances to play in postseason tournament in a long time. Not a single player on that roster has. They're going to take full advantage of it. You got to think the seniors, Rashawn Holmes and Javon Clark, Anthony Henderson, really going to show out on the road for what could be their last game. I got to go with the Falcons.
Absolutely, and Studio Crew also is picking Bowling Green. So sweep across the board for Bowling Green and men's basketball. Now baseball is starting their home stretch here Wednesday. They take on Youngstown State. I am picking Bowling Green for baseball. I think after the Russ Mountain Invitational, they had some losses. They had a few wins, but they ended on losses. I think they're going to come out at home, and they're going to get some wins here.
I think the Falcons are going to be happy they're finally getting back to Bowling Green, 2-5 in their last 7 games, but they're finally home, and I like their chances right before for a tune-up into MAC play, because this is the last game before MAC play starts.
It absolutely is. Studio Crew is taking Youngstown State, though. They're mixing it up a little bit.
I think they're trying to gain some wins back because they're already so far behind.
I think they are, too. They're not too far behind, though, Terry. They're only 1 win less than me.
There's going to be one more.
Okay, hopefully. Now, softball. Softball is taking on Michigan. I've got to go with Michigan. I think Michigan's a strong team. They're a strong Big Ten team for the Falcons to take on in softball. I think it's going to be Big Blue all the way.
I think you're right. I think you got to go with the Wolverines. 24-4 this year. 2 of their losses to the #1 team in the country, Florida. Another one to another team ranked in the top 25. And their last one's against Kent State. So it does show that the Falcons have a shot, but I think it's a really small chance that they beat the Wolverines in Michigan.
Absolutely. And Studio is going with Bowling Green. They're going to mix it up again, going with Bowling Green. They're going to go against the tide on almost every pick except men's basketball.
Yeah, Studio keeping it wild.
They have an opportunity to really pull it ahead, or
really fall behind
a little bit. Hopefully drop off.
High risk, high reward.
Absolutely. That is all for BG24 Sports today. Follow us on Twitter at BG24 Sports Now for breaking scores and news, and follow us on Instagram at BG24 Sports.
Plus, check out our website at BG24news.org for more videos. I'm Terry Lash.
And I'm Katie Warnke. Have a great night.